Hello, hello, Liberation Hour. This is your host, Comrade Felicity, coming at you pre-recorded. Yes, folks. My cat is currently joining me as I record this, but I am out of town. I am back in Kansas City for a personal appointment, and so I am not available to come into the studio. So what you'll be listening to is a pre-recording of my episode on sex work. This is an episode which I did with the Chain Slayer 9000 and a comrade from my party, Comrade Josephine. We had a wonderful conversation. We have, the perspective of Comrade Chain Slayer 9000, who I think did a really good job synthesizing his arguments. And, we had a really wonderful conversation surrounding the topic of sex work and the fact that we don't have any definitive answers. This is an ongoing conversation that needs to be had in the Marxist-Leninist community and the parties around the country. And, it's a conversation that has been happening within my own party, within specifically, the Women's Commission and other commissions of this same character that are trying to find definitive answers to these questions. But this is a conversation that is ongoing. So please, leave comments, questions, concerns in the comment section, and continue the conversation. The second interview is with Comrade Josephine, who currently works in sex work and has done sex work in the past in order to keep herself and her family afloat. This is a multidimensional matter in which we must have multiple perspectives and evidence and understanding how we can further synthesize a solid analysis of the situation. And so this is a double-edged sword. And we have to remember who is really affected in the sex work community. And, everybody is affected, but it's a discussion that we must have a multidimensional perspective on. And so I am incredibly excited to show you guys this episode, and I hope you all enjoy, and I will see you all next week. Bye! Hey, so welcome back to the Liberation Hour. This is your host, Comrade Felicity, and I am here with a wonderful, another influencer. Yes, this is my third influencer on the channel. I'm so excited. If you want to give yourself an introduction, and we have such a fun topic to discuss today, which is sex work. All of the things, yes.
Yes, I am Chain Slayer. I am the Chain Slayer. My Instagram is Chain Slayer 9000. I love Dragon Ball Z, right? I just advocate. I'm the Chain Slayer. I slay chains. Simple as that. I advocate for liberation. I advocate for revolution, for change. No longer will we linger in the past. History does not move through stagnation. It moves through action. And that's what I advocate for. And I teach people theory on my Instagram. I have a YouTube channel where we're going through the history of the world, analyzing it through its systems like state, class, money. We've did hunter-gatherers all the way to the fall of Rome. And now we've done feudalism, and then we're going to get into colonialism. That's going to be
that's awesome.
So, yeah, and I went to school for humanities and sociology. So that's a lot of my perspectives comes from, is like the history of it and how it affected people. And that's what I share, teach, and I just try to make this understanding the world shit a lot more simpler for people, because it's not really that complex.
No. When you're looking at it through the Marxist lens, when you really understand the perspective, you always have to come back to the worker and how this affects the collective and everything. And I think that that's what makes this stuff, like, as you get into the theory and you start connecting dots and everything, you're like, oh, light bulb moment.
Yeah. They will hide everything from you. They will make you look in every single direction. The Matrix is a great movie to explain how the world works, right? Because you believe everything is real around you, and it kind of is, right? You could feel it, you could touch it, you could see it, you can manipulate it, but there is another structure around you, almost computer-like, a system that is controlling everything that you're even able to touch, you're even able to see, even able to taste. So you have to completely unplug. And once you unplug, you will be amazed by the depravity of this system. And it will make you want to reject everything it gives you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the computerized system being, of course, the state and the deep state of capitalism.
Exactly.
And our unplugging being reading Marx.
Yes,
Read
exactly.
Marx, read
Exactly.
Engels. There you go. That's
Like
unplugging.
dialectics,
Yeah.
historical materialism, like
Mhm.
simple shit, simple shit.
Yeah, and that's why it's important, like the dialectical view of history, the materialist view of history, I think is one of the best that you could have
Yeah,
because it is so comprehensive. And I mean, it's been proven time and time again to be so like, like we can see, for example, with the what's going on in Iran, Marxists tend to have a much more nuanced view, mainly because it's like, do I support the regime in power right now?
yeah.
Like,
No,
no.
no, no, absolutely not. No.
But like, I also don't support imperialism. It's kind of it's a similar principle with Ukraine. Do I support the Ukrainian government?
Yeah, yeah,
No. No,
yeah,
I don't. They are
yeah,
Nazis.
exactly.
The Ukrainian government is Nazis. But like, do I support the Russian government and their
No,
imperial? No. Like,
no.
and
But
right
do I
now,
want America sending bombs and drones so that they can further meat grind each other? No.
no.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. That's yeah.
So it's like it's the force nuance. You have to see it through. You can't see it through a lens of reaction. And if you are, then you're probably part of the ACP.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, you're a liberal.
or you're a liberal. You're either a MAGA communist or you're a liberal. There's
And there's no in between. That's
and
funny.
I know I can criticize ACP out loud because I think every Marxist on the planet has probably criticized
Yeah, I know
ACP.
ACP personally.
Yeah.
I actually know that I done spoke to them, and yeah, so yeah, I mean, I criticize everybody. You see
Oh
what
yeah.
I criticize everybody, Republicans, Democrats, ACP, even leftists. If people,
Yeah.
you know me, I tell them, hey, go take a shower. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
take a
saying?
shower,
Please.
please.
So,
Yeah, like, and that's the thing, participate, don't, I think that's something that a lot of leftists nowadays really struggle with is being online and being an online leftist, but not
yeah.
doing the organizing outside and meeting people.
Mm,
And that's something that, we've had to do a lot of struggle with in recent decades is like, how do you get people to not just do Discord leftism, but to also do leftism out in the streets?
yeah.
And actually understand like what are the real conditions. And so as it pertains to modern day sex work, I there's so much to unpack and uncover because you did a video on this on your channel and
Yeah.
in your page, and I think it was really interesting. And I might insert the clip in
Yeah, I
between
was thinking
this
like,
and
can we pull it up or something like that?
yeah,
But
sure. Yeah. Let me go ahead and
uh,
pull this guy up.
it is
Um,
it's a very touchy topic because there's layers to it. There's a lot
there
of layers
is.
to it. There's a lot of layers to it.
Oh, look that your one of your videos just popped up on my feed. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
it's so crazy. It's like, why is Instagram letting me do this? Why are
Yeah.
they letting me do this? I'm
Yeah.
telling people to, it's like
Yeah.
at one point, that's why I be telling people, we gotta hurry up and get so big that they cannot shut this shit down, right? Because they're gonna shut this shit down at one point.
Oh yeah. No, most certainly. So I'm gonna
Let me end this once and for all. As Marxists, we have to critically think. We have to be precise. Slavery equals the ownership of a person. Trafficking equals coercion and force. That is not labor. That is violent domination. However, if somebody sets their price, chooses clients, retains control, that is commodified labor. Exploitative? Yes, of course, like all labor under capitalism. But is it identical to slavery? No. Marxism is material, not about our feelings, okay? Goal isn't to legitimize commodification. The goal is to abolish the conditions that force people to sell themselves at all. Till then, workers deserve protection, not stigma. Sexuality doesn't disappear the moment private property does. Be for real, even under communism, a lot of y'all niggas would love to be sex workers. People would still create sexual art. People would still perform erotically. People would still post nudes and shit, engage in intimate exchange. The key difference under communism is that there is no economic coercion attached. No, I must do this or I starve. That literally changes everything entirely. So under communism, the category changes because the material base changes. So simply and succinctly, if everyone has food, housing, healthcare, and safety, no one has to sell their body to survive at all. Not to an oil rig, not to a boss, not to the streets, not to no one. That means sex work as survival would disappear. People would still have sex. I know a lot of these niggas don't be having sex or something, but people would still be sexual and people would still express desire and want to be desired. The difference is people have to sell sex because they have to. In a communist society, nobody would have to, and it would just leave those who want to. That's it.
But needless to say, the comments were crazy. Everyone, there was a lot of discourse, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's literally like a 50-50 split every time.
Yes. Yeah, no, people were really back and forth on it, which I appreciated actually. I thought that was really interesting because I didn't see necessarily any hate. I saw more like a lot of people trying to figure out their stance on it, because I think you got a lot of the broad strokes like really really well communicated. You know, like understanding labor. I think a lot of people were trying to understand your position on, would sex work exist in a communist society? Because it's a completely different mode of production, and sex work, a lot of it exists, at least prostitution. When we're talking about prostitution, it exists under the framework of patriarchy.
Yeah.
And the elements of like private property and the family and how we view women as property under a capitalist mode of production. But I'm not necessarily sure that that's all sex work.
No, it's not. And that's no. That's what the problem is with this conversation, is that there are so many layers to it that we have to break them down almost individually, right?
Right.
Because like you said, there is a difference between sex work and sex slavery, but these two things under capitalism directly intertwine and are almost at a synthesis, right?
Yes.
So, and all labor under capitalism is exploitation and is exploitative. So, and what it comes down to, what I feel like, and I just don't, I don't want to say this, but I just had to say it, is that it comes down to people thinking that typing on a computer is more respectable work than a woman getting on her back and, you know, having intercourse for money. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
People see that see it as inherently demeaning, inherently this, inherently that, as if all work under capitalism is not inherently demeaning. And I'm not saying that it doesn't have its more demeaning aspects of it. I'm not saying that it can't be disempowering, but I'm also saying that under capitalism, this is a real line of work, okay? You have not only prostitutes, which some sell are just like not having pimps, and they're just like making money, and they want to do like, they don't want to go work at a corporate job. So they'd rather do this. Not a lot. I'm not saying the whole community, but there are people like that. There are people who do OnlyFans and who are like dominatrix, and they love their jobs. Okay. They love their jobs. Okay.
Yeah.
There are gay porn. Okay. Gay porn. I always say this, gay porn. I bet they love their jobs. Okay. So there's a lot of their, and that's what I say too. A lot of y'all, excuse my French, niggas. Okay, if somebody said go put your dick in something for $500, you gonna go do it. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But this is the truth. So under communism, right, sex work is a different category. It's not what it is now. So we can't have the same conversation that we're having now. Yes, all sex work under this system is demeaning. Sex work is intrinsically tied to sex slavery under this system. That's why if we remove this system and have a system of communism, we can't. That doesn't mean that we ban it. I mean, are you going to literally tell me that under communism, if somebody has sex or you know, does furries, we're going to lock up furries? That's what you're telling me. Because if we're banning sex work, that's a whole different conversation. I mean, it's just a layered conversation. So that's what it comes down to me for. It's not as a defense of sex work or as a defense of pimps or anything like that, but it's the reality of what people do and saying that, are we going to criminalize them? Are we going to criminalize a woman who has to sell herself if she feels like she has to sell herself for to survive? Are we going to criminalize her, or are we going to criminalize the buyer? Or are we going to make a system and where this doesn't happen, and the only form of it that does happen is people who consensually do it?
Yeah, and I think I think that's a really interesting perspective, because I agree for the most part. I think that the thing about so I actually just at work, so I work the overnight shift, so I listen to a lot of stuff on the overnight shift, and I just listened to Alexandra Kollontai's speech on prostitution. Now, Alexandra Kollontai was speaking at a time like this was written in 1921, so this is over 100 years ago. Sex work was a different thing. And I feel like today, part of the reason we need to be having this conversation is because sex work has really blossomed into something different. It absolutely still exists in an exploitative manner with prostitution. And it's not something that we can look away from. It's not something that we cannot say doesn't exist, because it absolutely does. However, there are forms of sex work now that are not necessarily dictated by a pimp. And like, for example, strip clubs. I don't even think that most of like strippers are even necessarily having intercourse during like what they're doing.
They're not having intercourse at all. And that's another thing I wanted to add is I dated a stripper. Okay. A lot of these people have never talked to a sex worker. Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't understand I necessarily want to say freedom kind of that it can give people. You can make your own hours. And it comes down to it's complicated because there's a relationship there, even with the client, right? That the man is getting some type of release, and he's not even having sex with you. He's just here at the club, like having a good time, literally, right? And then there's a relationship with the woman that this client, we sit and we talk. And I talked to him about it's almost like being a therapist. It's almost like being a therapist for it. So it's a deeper value than just sex. And that's what people don't realize. And so it's like when we're talking about sex work, we have to understand that the only value in sex is not just sex itself, and the pleasure it gives you.
Right. And there are relationships that form. And I think that in the current system that we're living under with patriarchal white supremacist capitalism, as bell hooks would say, I think that sex work has unfortunately mutated into an incredibly exploitative situation where it's like you have strippers that are making they might be making a lot of money, but at the same time they live they're dealing with incredibly abusive bosses who run the clubs and who own the means of production for them to be able to strip.
Taking half their money.
Yeah, and taking half. And so it's like I was just the movie Anora just came out like
that was such a good one. And didn't that get released by Netflix?
Did it get released? Wait, what?
I'm not sure, but yeah, that was I know it's like an independent film and stuff like that. But at least I saw it on Netflix. That was a really good movie, though.
It was really good, and I think it explored a lot of the nuances and a lot of I think that the current world we live in with sex work, and especially strippers and prostitution, and people who choose to do the work versus people who don't. This has been a back and forth conversation eventually among many spaces, the feminist space, the Marxist space, trying to understand where it fits. I think the movie Anora did a really good job at kind of showcasing how the party lifestyle, especially under capitalism, is not conducive to like a stable life.
Yeah.
However, that's not necessarily how it will always be. That's just how that's its characteristics right now under the current mode of production. But I feel as though, looking at this reading from Kollontai, a lot of what she's talking about is sex work in the context of prostitution in which women are forced to sell their bodies because and she makes that comparison with women who become housewives. They basically sell their bodies to their husbands, and they become a form of private property for him to bear his children as long as he provides for them.
Yeah, and the system of patriarchy at this time was much more concrete and much more crystallized. So you literally, like, you got divorced. That's why you have a lot of sex workers, because these were divorced women or widows who could not get a husband after divorce or after being widowed and had to survive. So she's definitely speaking to that. And now with capitalism, we're all and men, women, we're all even put into more precarious situation. The precariousness is spread around, and especially more people are single now and things like that. So even the pervasiveness of the porn industry and the pervasiveness of OnlyFans is fueled by men's loneliness. It's fueled by men, right? The market is fueled by men. So the trauma of men feeds into the trauma of the sex industry. And that's why I don't want to wash over the fact that sex workers are they're conscious, and even the way that they cope with the sex work is directly influenced by patriarchy and is directly built from patriarchy. Doing, like, even when I used to talk to some girls, it's like them saying, like, well, like you said, you have to sell your body to at any point I'm selling pussy. That's what I used to say. But any point I'm selling pussy, whether I'm going on a date or whether I'm doing this at this job or this job. So it comes down to, yes, patriarchy makes us all sell our bodies, but selling it in this way, and this is what I want people to truly understand, is no more or less respectable or more demeaning than selling it to a corporation or selling it at a factory or selling it this way or getting it taken from you by selling drugs and going to prison. And that's all I have to say. Sorry.
Well, yeah, no, it's true. And it's also, the labor is all the labor is, all the same. It's labor, it's wage labor. But the thing is, the way sex work is criminalized and the way that it's treated is not as necessarily like a form of real labor. It's treated as like a form of, like, I would say, like, underworld labor, where it's like, it's almost like drug dealers,
yes, you're literally treated like a drug dealer. And that's what I'm telling to people is that, bro, are you literally telling me that we should be throwing poor women in jail for selling their body and not throwing the person in jail, at least who's buying it? Because there would be no market, but it still doesn't solve the issue. That's what it just doesn't get to me, why criminalizing would ever solve the issue. Because same with drugs, same with anything. If people are doing it, criminalizing doesn't help it. What does help it is building a structure around it to make sure that it's safe. And as simple as that. And then you can dissipate that structure once it is safe, or once we build a society where it's no longer needed. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not advocating for sex work or saying, go into sex work. If you want to, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. This is a free country. But if you do, you shouldn't be thrown in jail. If you do, and somebody pays for, or you do some services and somebody doesn't pay, you should be able to sue them. You should be able to have protections around you. And as simple as that, like under any system, even under communism, if a woman does a sexual favor, or if two guys do sexual favors for each other and the favors aren't paid off or something is not right, there should be protections around it. There should be a way to get it handled. And as simple as that. And if we act like it doesn't exist, if we act like people aren't going to do it, or if we act like if people that are doing it are somehow immorally bad, somehow evil, somehow corrupted, then that will only push it further into alienating people, further into shaming people, and further into hurting people.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the thing is Kollontai talks about this in her speech where she's like, the Soviet government is trying to figure out like how do they deal with all of this prostitution once the Civil War is over, or I mean I don't know if the Civil War was completely over, it's 1921, but basically, they're like, how do we figure this out? And part of her speech, she puts, how should we fight this situation? The Interdepartmental Commission had to tackle the important question of whether or not prostitution should be made a criminal offense. Many of the representatives of the commission were inclined to the view that prostitution should be an offense, arguing that professional prostitutes are clearly labor deserters. If such a law were passed, the roundup and placing of prostitutes in forced labor camps would become accepted policy. But the things she says after is the Central Department spoke in firm and absolute opposition to such. A step pointing out that if the prostitutes were to be arrested on such grounds, then so ought all legal wives who are maintained by their husbands and do not contribute to society. The prostitute and the housewife are both labor deserters, and you cannot send one to a forced labor camp without sending the other. This was the position the Central Department took, and it was supported by the representative of the Commissariat of Justice. And if we take labor desertion as our criterion, we cannot help punishing all forms of labor desertion. Marriage or the existence of certain relationships between the sexes is of no significance and can play no role in the defining criminal offenses in a labor republic. And I thought that was a really interesting excerpt. What do you think about that?
I think that that is it. See, I think that they are just missing one thing, and the one thing it comes down to is companionship. It's companionship is. I'm not gonna sit here. Maybe it's the fact that I have to think about it more. Maybe I am brainwashed by patriarchy, brainwashed, but I grew up under this system. But there's still something to companionship. Like sexual labor isn't valueless. I don't feel like it doesn't add any value to society. I feel like being able to express yourself sexually adds a lot of value to society, not just prostitution alone, too. I'm speaking to, erotic art. I'm speaking to porn, you know what I'm saying? Like being able to release yourself sexually. I'm speaking to like, parties where people dance naked and shit like that. Like, being able to express yourself sexually is very, 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 very valuable.
Important. Yeah.
Valuable. That has value. And I feel like that's the one thing they just don't speak to in that is that it is not a form of valueless labor. And so is a mother being at the home, right? A mother being at the home is not valueless labor. It's emotional labor. It's you literally taking care of the house, nurturing children. There's a reason mothers are at the home, and there's a reason the father has to, I guess, maintain her. So I don't even like that word of maintaining her because there is a symbiotic
relationship.
Yeah, and it's not. And it should be recognized. That's the problem. Is that we don't recognize the labor of and we're not only we have to give them a choice, but we can recognize the house labor of a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, the social labor is an aspect that I do think is incredibly important. And I think that under a socialist society, that's not going to go away, but it's not going to fall necessarily on a single mom, a mother of multiple children to be the only one to care for those children. And I do think that there is some overlooking of how social labor is understood and the fact that, it's not that I don't feel as though, if we're just discussing wives, separate from being mothers, just women who are subjugated to being wives who are not allowed to work. That's a different conversation. But when we're talking about motherhood, when we're talking about people who, like the woman is being owned specifically for her ability to bear children. She literally is a means of production.
Yes. So have to take care of this means of production. Yes, that comes along with
Yeah, and so when we see this, like literally being owned by her husband, that is a form of subjugation. Absolutely.
Of course. And not only is it a subjugation, it's a form of what's the word of erasing a woman's value as well, because again, women are much more valuable than bearing children. Women throughout history have had intellectual prowess that men can't even capture, right? And so
women,
yeah.
Well, that's
So
like women, we perform all kinds of labor.
yeah, we women, when society's about balance, right? When men were hunting, women were gathering. When women nurture, men bring stuff to women, and women make it, make it something. That's how history has gone out. So to erase just to completely erase the labor is just saddening and saddening. And and we definitely do just enslave our wives. And that and I totally agree when but this is an imposed position that are placed upon the woman, and same as when it comes to prostitution, this is an imposed position that is placed upon the woman by society, but it's not up to us now to criminalize them. It is up to us now to free them, and we won't free them through criminalization. So that's why any policy based upon it must be nuanced. It must protect the woman at the same time as freeing them from these chains. So you can let them have positions of power. You can let them be independent. But the women who are still thinking of this system or still want to be housewives or things like that, we have to recognize their labor as well. And even people who want to continue to be sex workers, we have to recognize their labor as well, because not all sex workers are prostitutes, and not all sex workers are and under a society where sex work would be not coercive and not imposed upon you, the sex work would look much, much different.
Yeah, it would. And I think that it's hard to say how it would look, how I don't think we can necessarily predict how these things will look when communism prevails, and it will, it's hard to say because we don't know what that society quite looks like quite yet. I mean, we have examples in the Soviet Union and other past communist countries that have existed, and we can see what they did, but we're also operating under very different conditions, and we also have
social media and girls and men just posting their bodies not only for like profit but for the admiration, right? And for the glorification of that just so much goes into it. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, and the liberation of queer people as well, and queer people's acceptance into society also changes, like it completely flips the gender binary on its head.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're just thinking about it. A lot of times people just think about it in the sense of woman, but it's in the sense of us all being able to express ourselves sexually without being shamed, judged, criminalized for it.
Exactly. And I think that it's a necessary conversation, unlike the Necessary Conversation podcast.
Oh my God.
It is a necessary conversation and this will not be probably the only time that I talk about this on this show or beyond. About sex work.
Research it, and I've been reading more feminist literature. So because it is such a deep topic to discuss and to dive into, and the layers of patriarchy in our system shaping the consciousness of sex workers, but sex workers also having their own consciousness is the layers that really make it muddled. We're advocating for sex work, but their position is directly contingent upon an evil system, and their position is directly tied to this evil system. So does advocating for their position mean you're advocating for this system? So that's where I think that it comes down to being muddled. But I just never want people to think that I'm advocating for somebody who's brainwashed to keep being brainwashed. No, I'm advocating for somebody who has been materially fucked by this system to not continue to be materially fucked by the system as we build mechanisms and systems around them for them to escape being put into this exploitative line of work.
Exactly. And I personally am of the belief that I don't know how prominent sex work is going to be post-capital society.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know. And I think that we should leave the door open for sex work to mutate and or I guess to blossom into something more that to blossom into something that is congruent with with labor and can be fused with labor
yeah,
to be a respected form of the economy.
yeah,
Because I think that when Kollontai was writing, and I respect so much of her work, you know, sex work was seen very differently, and they were living in a much different society. I mean, this was the early 1920s, but we live in a very different world now, and
yeah,
I think that when we talk about sex work and how it fits into a new society, we can't have a black and white, yes, it won't exist, or no, it won't.
yeah.
I mean, even back then, it existed. Prostitution was huge, unfortunately, at the beginning
Yeah,
of
and
the
I feel
Soviet
like
Union.
strippers, I feel like they still be around, you know, because you could have male strippers, there's guy strippers, there's girl strippers, and as long as they get all of their value, you know what I'm saying?
It's
Then
also a form of art and
yeah,
expression.
exactly. Literally, like pole dancing is literally a form of art. Like it's beautiful, like, and it takes training. Like you don't just like, you
Pole
know,
dancers are scary strong.
yeah, yeah. So it's like I feel like that, and that's still again the value is not just them, is companionship, is being able to chill, leisure, just simple
Yeah,
shit. Like you know what I'm saying. So it's not, it's deeper than just a coercive. Like under communism, there would be different forms of this, and it would be more towards again companionship, leisure, and these people who are doing this will be able to capture their full value.
exactly. And maybe pursue other lines of work
Yeah,
besides sex work if it's something that they want,
yeah,
because
yeah,
they
yeah,
should be able to do that. You
yeah,
know, like
exactly.
I follow a stripper on Instagram who she's gorgeous and I love her content. I think she's so funny. And, you know, part of the reasons she turned to stripping was to pay off a lot of her student loans,
Yeah,
because that's one of the only ways that she was getting in the big bucks. But she also was very honest about this very glamorous lifestyle that she lives, where she's like, listen, like, I know it looks great on paper, what it looks like on Instagram, but this is
yeah,
not how everybody lives.
yeah.
He was a stripper.
Facts. Most girls, like you, again, are struggling, coming here just to get by, having to pay tip in, tip out, right? You gotta tip it. So basically, if you even if you make $0, you have to pay $50 just to be there. And then you have to tip out sometimes too. So I've literally dated strippers, dropped strippers off at the strip club. The strip in the, I live in Atlanta,
Yeah,
so the industry is fucking terrible. I mean, it's just there to exploit girls who are broke and are need money. And a girl can't go to if you got bills and you got to pay $1,500 for your bills, you're not gonna go to Arby's and fucking make $1,500. You're not gonna go anywhere around Georgia and make $1,500 in the time you need, especially if you have a kid who's gonna take 500 of those dollars if like
hmm,
barely 500. I mean, but it like maybe all of those dollars. You know what I'm saying?
hmm,
Like for real.
yeah,
So these women has so many variables to what is siphoning their money, and so many variables to them not being able to get enough money, to which this is the only path that they have to get enough money. And this
right.
path right here needs to be not exploitative, not be they don't need to be tipping in, they know that they be tipping out, they need to have W2s until we can destroy this evil exploitative system, to the point where if they do have a child, if they do have these things, they will never have to look towards this. And then there are some women who like are just young girls who don't want to fucking work at a Dairy Queen, or don't want
Yeah,
to work in a factory, who are like college girls who just want, who like go look at themselves in the mirror and are like, wow, I'm fucking hot. And I
right,
want to like go be fucking hot for
right,
like hella people. Like I
right.
know a girl that's like that. Like she, like you said, she goes to college for finance, and she literally just likes it. Just likes the fact that a bunch of people love her and want to see her dance, and are excited to see her dance and just simple shit like that. So that person also should not be criminalized. And then I know a gay guy, right, who does gay like OnlyFans. He has an OnlyFans and he's gay, and he don't want to go work for a corporate whatever. He doesn't want, his passion is doing this. He likes to share this. This is a community and they are interested in this, and he likes to share it. Simple as that. So there are layers to this, and every layer should be protected as we untwine them, I guess.
I think that's a great way to put it, is as we kind of like pull this thread and try to figure out this mess that has been created, we have to protect the labor that is, at the heart of the situation, and recognize that, these folks are human beings, first of all, and they deserve respect, and that criminalizing or trying to forcefully stop this industry is not actually going to be the solution. It is only going to exacerbate the problem. Exactly. And it's recognizing that, will sex work exist in a post-capital, communist society? I don't know. I don't know.
What do you call sex work? What?
And that's the thing, is I don't know. Like at this point, we don't really know, because you can't know the future. You don't have foresight. We can only look at the variables that we have available now. And
we're here to set up the future. We're not here to tell the future. We're here to lay down the seeds for the future to grow. I can't tell you how many apples is going to be on that tree, okay? But I'm going to tell you that tree is going to grow.
Exactly. And that's exactly how I feel about it. And it's like, if sex work does exist in a post-capitalist communist society, then I'm perfectly fine with that, because I know that it will not be an industry in which those workers are being exploited. They will be getting the full value of their labor.
And they won't have to go into that line of work for survival.
For survival, it will be a choice. It should be a choice.
Yes.
And it's, if we're going to be pro-choice, we have to be pro-choice across the board. And it should be a choice to go into sex work, because it's an art and it's what you want to do.
And capitalism has trained us to see sex work as lazy, to see it as demeaning, to see it as something to be ashamed of, to see sex in your body as something to be ashamed of. So you isolate yourself. So that is another reason why that line of thinking comes in.
It is. And I think it's incredibly important to recognize that so many sex workers are just regular people, like trying to get by. This pisses me off to no end, but there's an episode of The West Wing, or a few episodes of The West Wing in the first season, where like one of the characters has like a long-standing like he has like this relationship kind of with this like escort girl in DC who's like in law school, and this is how she pays her bills. And the way Aaron Sorkin writes it is just pathetic and bad, and I hate him.
These niggas have never. That's not another thing. Like, bro, I don't be on the internet a lot, bro. And I like, the reason I know about Marxism and things, because I actually read the books, and I never even been on the internet, and I don't like to be on the internet all day. But what I'm realizing is a lot of these niggas never fucked. So have never fucked. Y'all aren't fucking. So it's like, bro, you haven't even like fucked the escort. I'm sorry, I don't want to say that, but it's like or your experience with the escort is only buying them, right? It's never even getting to know one, like just knowing a girl and then figuring out she's an escort. It will just blow your mind. Like, oh, it's real. It's real.
Yeah.
You could be like a normal person in real life and go do this and then go on with your fucking day. I mean, simple as that. So these niggas have never dated no stripper. These niggas have never been in this world to where they see how normal it is. It is really normal, and they want to make it feel like something just fucking exotic and strange and this, that, and the third. And that's why niggas like that write shit like that. And that's why these niggas be
just
acting like
ignorant.
Yeah, they just don't be fucking. And that's
Yeah, and Aaron Sorkin, the way he wrote that scene just made me like, not the scene, but like the whole storyline with this character just made me so mad now that I think about it, because I watched the show when I was like still a liberal. I was like 17, 18.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, oh my God, this is so good. This is what real politics is like.
Yeah.
And and I realized obviously it's not.
Yeah.
But I think back to that storyline of this escort, and the character's name is Sam Seaborn, and like that's his whole first arc is basically like, like apparently he slept with her, and like this, like the first episode, and I don't think he knew she was an escort, and it's like a whole moral dilemma for him. And it's like, okay, she's not the problem in this situation. You're the fucking problem for thinking that it's a problem, that she is a problem. Like that, like her line of work is demeaning and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, there's an interesting conversation to be had here about her student loans and her being in law school, and like how like the system has kind of forced her into a line of work that maybe she doesn't want to do. But that's not what Aaron Sorkin's trying to do, because Aaron Sorkin, at the heart of it all, does not like women. He hates women.
Yeah, okay.
He's attracted to women,
but he
hates women.
And that's what I was just about to speak to, that because it's like, it's just clear, even in the writing, right? The guy is funding her escort, So it's like, how do you not have the same shame outlook on the guy buying it, right? The guy, well, he can't go get pussy, like, you know what I'm saying? He has to buy it, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, why does he have that same disdain for the buyer? I just don't understand that. And it's because he's the buyer.
It's also because Aaron Sorkin, he writes all of his women like this. And the way that he writes her and their relationship is like, there's like a night that Sam is at this ball or this gala, and she's a high-end escort is the thing. So she's there with a senator. And she's being paid for her time. And he like has a whole moment, like a whole emo moment, where he's like, oh, I can't believe she's here right now. And it's like, she's working. First of all, she's fucking working.
I can't believe you're here right now.
I can't believe you're here right now.
Yeah, like, what are you talking about? Like, but it's just, again, it comes down to it's just so funny. It's just so funny. The funniness of it. It's like, I hate this idea of I'm saving her, like
the white savior complex.
I see more in her.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, like, you're buying her. What are you talking? You obviously don't. You literally obviously don't. You don't see more in her. You're paying for her services. I mean, what are you saying?
And it's like, if you did see more in her, you would respect her to make her own decisions, because she's an adult.
See more in her, nigga, you'd be writing about revolution, okay? If you saw more in her, you'd want to free her from a system that even allows this. And you wouldn't even be looking near her. You wouldn't be looking at her direction. If anything, you'd be looking at that senator. You'd be looking at that senator. And that's the problem. And that is the problem. We can you make the enemy of the victim.
Yeah.
But the perpetrator can be right in your goddamn face, and you will be blind to it. It is pathetic. It is pathetic. And you call yourself a man.
Yeah, no, and that's how a lot of like actual politicians and people in the White House, of course right now, and
Wow.
I do think we should cover this, actually. So post-Soviet countries, many of the women who were victimized by Epstein and his clique of billionaires, a lot of the women that they abused were actually from post-Soviet countries who sold themselves into prostitution, because the countries that had protections for them prior to the Soviet Union dissolving don't exist anymore. And so a lot of them went into modeling, which was just sex slavery. And the fact is that it's not being talked about enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's what I hate about this conversation, is that it's worldwide and people act like it's only like an American thing. And that a lot of these girls, right, weren't even trafficked in America, and or not even from America. So it is about the ruling class doesn't have a nation. Okay, the ruling class, the whole planet is just a chessboard for the ruling class to extract its pawns from. So we have to understand that when we're talking, this is what I always tell people, is that when we're talking about America, we're talking about the world, because America is trying to run the world, take over the world, and everything America does affects the world. So these girls, America is the reason the Soviet Union is dissolved. America is the reason these Baltic countries and these Soviet bloc countries are underdeveloped. And it's so deep to the point where Eastern European colonialism put Eastern Europe deeper into serfdom.
Yeah.
Because the capitalism growing in Eastern Europe at the time had to be fueled by something. And before they went and got slaves from Africa, they got slaves from the Slavic region. That's where the word slave comes from. Mm-hmm. This is what people must understand. Your white supremacy is fake. All this shit is fake. Wherever they can find the fuel to run their engine ran on blood,
they'll find it.
They will acquire it. It don't matter if you white, black, or this or that. And this is why we must all connect. And this is why we must all come together beyond race, religion, creed, or anything, because they don't care. And they connect beyond race, religion, creed, or anything. The Zionist Jews and the Christians are best friends right now, okay?
Mm-hmm. And that's unheard of. And like, you know, the thing is that it's proletarian internationalism, and it's recognizing that, you know, the proletariat needs to have that same attitude that, you know, we don't see borders, we see workers across the world who are being exploited by the same. You know,
they do not see borders.
They don't
across the world. Like,
no, I mean, Epstein was not only an agent of the CIA, he was also an agent of the Mossad, which is the same thing.
With the Russian guy, like,
and the Saudis.
We're ready to buy. Here you go, like.
Yeah, no, and like, you know, I actually, this is a little side tangent. I've been recently looking up and watching a lot of stuff about all the comedians that went to the Riyadh Festival.
Oh my God, that's pathetic.
Oh my God, it's so pathetic. But there's a clip of Shane Gillis. Now, say what you will about Shane Gillis.
He didn't go.
Say what you will about White Boy, but White Boy's got swag.
He didn't go. And Shane Gillis is like very well versed in history. I mean,
he is. Well, he just there's this clip of him, and they went, you know, you got to go to perform at Saudi Arabia. Everybody's doing it, and he goes, "You mean the guys that did 9/11?"
Yeah, real deal, real spill. But it's like, you guys, it's just the fucking bullshit. Oh, America first. Oh, we had to protect America. Oh, this, that, and third. Oh, the immigrants are coming in and invading America. Let me go to the country that actually invaded America. Like, are we fucking playing around? It's just it's
crazy.
It's the cognitive dissonance. It's so much layers of stupidity, and that's why I say we're at a war with just stupidity.
Yeah, we are. And it's the fact that, like, I watched a clip of Bill Burr, who was like, a few years ago, he was like, I would never go to Dubai. That city was built on slave labor. And it's like, yeah, true. And then he went to Saudi Arabia, and he has been running circles around himself trying to justify it. And it's like, you can't, is the thing. And it's like trying to justify Epstein trafficking women, or all of, and you know, it's like trying to justify, like, oh, well, you know, it was fine because it's like, it's not. It's like, oh no, it's like the concept of, well, just because you were hanging out with Epstein doesn't mean you were doing anything illegal. It's not illegal to be friends with Epstein. And it's the same concept. It's not illegal to go to perform for the Saudi government. I mean, yeah, sure, it's not, but like, it's wrong.
It's wrong, but
like,
the fuck, it's just so many layers to it, because the same, it's not illegal. The same niggas we talking about made the laws. I mean, it's not illegal. Of course, it's not illegal to be hanging with Jeffrey Epstein. He was making the fucking law.
Y'all were friends. You were the one making the laws. Like,
what are you talking about? It's so slow. This is why you can't add. This is why I always speak to never give legitimacy to anything these niggas say. Anything they say, their laws are crap. Their beliefs are crap. Their morals are crap. Their countries are crap. Any reasoning they give you is shit, crap. because it's not even fucking real. It doesn't apply to you. It's literally like they're in it. Just think about them in a big circle and like, how do we convince themselves to kill themselves? Oh, we got to make them drink the Kool-Aid. We got to tell them the Kool-Aid is going to take them to space. Whatever the fuck, they will make you kill yourself. It is on you to not kill yourself. That's what people must understand. No, they're not going to not let you kill yourself. They act like Donald Trump is gonna, no, don't drink the Kool-Aid. No. He's gonna drink up.
Drink up, you know, like
you to say fuck the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Fuck your system, fuck your hegemony, fuck your culture, fuck your news, fuck your laws. I know what's right. I don't need the law to tell me what's right or wrong. I don't need the law to tell me that you fucking children is right or wrong. Okay, I don't care if it's in Saudi Arabia or goddamn America. And if it is in America, boy, oh fucking boy, that's what it should be. Because if you have pride, if you're such a fucking patriot, then you should want the children of this nation to be able to walk our streets, to be able to go to school, to be able to be a model, to be able to follow their dreams without some rich, sick, old pedophile taking them and leaving them powerless. That is pathetic. That's fucking pathetic.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, and they like to call themselves men and alpha men. This is a blasphemy of what it means to be a man.
Sorry, but no, it's true. And it's like, you know, we're getting to the end of time here, but it's so true is the thing is, it's like recently, like, you know, the guy like Clavicular has been popping off and all their insanity. Don't even get me started. We don't even get me started. But you see this whole new generation of guys who are operating under that same assumption, but even like more acutely toxic. It's so bad. And you listen to them and I'm like, do you hear yourself? Like, is there anything going on up in there? Like Clavicular, the way he, you know, and this all does tie back into sex work, guys, I promise, because these men are this exact people who are abusing the sex workers.
Yes, and funding it, abusing it, making management companies for it, and this, that, and third. And then they want to sit here and talk about protection. They want to sit here and talk about our country, what's right, what's wrong. Why the fuck are we even letting these people sit here and tell us what's right or what's wrong? These niggas are fucking sex traffickers. These niggas have no morals, and the only moral they have is green. The only moral they have is how many streams I have, how much money I get. This is why they will gamble in front of you. This is why they will lie to you. This is why they are telling you to fucking rub your chin and put ice and nonsense on how you look. Let me tell you something.
Phone smashing.
There are ugly niggas right now getting more pussy than you could ever imagine. Ever.
It's because they're communists.
It's not about how you look.
Yeah.
It's about who you are. And until people get that, you'll never get no pussy. I'm sorry. And that's what it's all about.
It's true.
Yeah, and that's what I speak to. That's what I always try to speak to is let's get down to how real people see life. Okay. People aren't even thinking about the fucking the structural impacts of OnlyFans. These niggas is thinking about pussy, all right? And at the end of the day, you won't have to be on OnlyFans. If you outside in your community, if you building something in your community, women, men, children, everybody will look up to you.
Yeah.
So, and that's all I have to say.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that, you know, I just watched Jay Aubrey just dropped a new video on Clavicular, guys. Everyone go watch it. It's really good. It's like 2 hours long.
Boy.
Yes, he's real as fuck. And he just dropped a 2-hour video on Clavicular, and it's incredibly sad because we can see just how patriarchy affects everybody negatively. And, you know, it's not just sex workers. It's all people are negatively harmed under a system which, you know, represents one binary of gender over the other, or enforces those norms. And it's incredible to listen to this kid who's, by the way, 20 years old.
Well, he's a victim. He is really truly.
He is a fucking victim. 20-year-old kid who is already doing crystal meth. And you listen to him talk, and first of all, he's a Nazi and a white nationalist. But you listen to him talk, and it's like, oh, he's gonna be dead in like 10 years.
Yeah, and what's sad about it is that it's being stripped from reality. right?
Yeah.
That's truly sad about it is he is a victim. This nigga has been complete.
He has been completely like there's no he and this started happening to him when he was like 13 or 14 years old.
Yeah. It's oh my god.
Yeah, he's a baby.
I have
He's
to
a
watch that
baby.
video. That is fucking sad.
Yeah, you know, like you look at him and it's like he looks 30, but he's
You haven't
not.
even been able to realize yourself because
Yeah.
you've let the system realize you. And
Mhm.
that is really, really sad because humanity, you only get one life, right? So why not be the one in your life to make your decisions? And he has completely let Jeffrey Epstein basically make his
Yeah.
decisions, right? Nazi poll, all this right-wing nonsense is directly from Jeffrey Epstein. He let Jeffrey Epstein make who he is. That right there is almost as sad as race as somebody being affected by racism. I mean, this is sad. That is really sad.
It is incredibly sad, and I don't like him as a human, of course, but I look at him and I'm like, oh no,
I have
like
pity.
I just pity him. I
Yeah.
can't even muster being mad anymore at him because I'm like, I just kind of feel bad for the guy. Like,
Yeah.
you're a victim of the system and you don't even realize it, and you're reinforcing it by continuously like there's a whole clip of him where he was at a club and there was I guess they came home and they called these girls and the girls came over and one of the guys was being incredibly creepy to one of the girls, but the other clavicular went and presumably went and had sex with one of them
Okay.
consensually, I believe, and they came back and he looked like he was coming down off of his drugs, and
Yeah.
he also looked sad, just so like
Yeah.
empty, and he's like
Because
berating her and being a dick, and she eventually leaves, and I'm just like, oh, you have like nothing in your life.
yeah, and that's what it comes down a lot with these. It's the same principle as a gay person who hates themselves, right? Or
Yeah.
it's self-hate, and the woman gets to you get to explore your self-hate through the woman. You get to feel as if you are dominating her, right? But then
Yeah.
afterwards you feel the domination of her over you, right? She would never like me if I didn't pay her.
And the
And
shame.
it's shame, yes. And
Yes.
it's sad. It's sad. It's truly sad that you cannot escape this. And is
Yeah.
it? It's like, is it? Are you dumb? You know what I'm saying? Are you dumb?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
or is it just this? And it shows you how powerful this system is. And it's like that. Somebody like that who has a brain cannot escape, and so young, so young. So it's like there is no escape when you are so young at that time because it's just like it is baked into you. So I just pray for him.
Yeah. No, and that's the other
Revolution
side.
comes, like I guess we'll put him in the gulag, but we'll put him we'll give him a therapist. So,
We're gonna have to detox his ass. He's
yeah, no,
gonna be
he
on so
needs
much meth.
re-education. He needs a long, like 5-year re-education, and then he doesn't need gulag. See, some people need gulag because they are not just victims, but they are just purely perpetrators. Jeffrey Epstein, Andrew Tate, but he needs re-education because he is truly a victim, and it's like it's sad. It's like pathetic. It's sad, pathetic, and I pity him.
Yeah, me too. And it's the flip side of patriarchy where, women under patriarchy are often victimized in, in many ways prostitution and other forms of exploitation. But, men are not necessarily reaping all the benefits here. In fact, they're not.
They're
Working
not
class
good.
men are not.
Yeah,
And even though, and he's not, he might be rich, but he doesn't know how to like he's not keeping any of that money. Most of it he's spending on stupid shit
yeah.
because he's 20 years old and he's off ketamine. Like this man, as we continue to discuss sex work, and I want everybody to please leave a comment in the comment section and tell us your thoughts because I would really like to keep this conversation going.
I don't even have a stance. It's just a conversation that is good to have this conversation because it's good to understand what labor is. It's good to understand how labor manifests. How do we attack these contradictions? How do we process and work through these contradictions? And how do we make sure that we address every contradiction while also protecting the victims of these contradictions.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why this episode was so necessary, and why I can't wait to do another one.
Yeah.
And really, keep delving into this topic. If anybody has any sources that they want to share, please put it in the comment section. And yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for being on the show.
No problem, no problem. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Chain Slayer, and I love this show. Love you, Felicity.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Liberation Hour. I am joined by Comrade Josephine, uh, um, division member of the APL, located over in the Central Region. And we're here to discuss further the topic of sex work and sex work in the United States, and how it relates to working class organizing, and how we should further view it. Especially, I know, Comrade Josephine, aren't you part of the Women's Commission in the party?
No,
Oh,
I'm
no.
more no, I was for a little bit, and I decided to just mainly stick with the Labor Commission.
Okay.
I didn't want to stretch myself too thin.
I totally understand. Yeah, but the Women's Commission within the party has made statements on sex work. And so the party does have a position, but at the same time, I would like to hear, your personal experiences, and also, just in general, how we, another dimension to how we should view sex work, because it is such a complicated topic, and it's important to understand multiple perspectives on it, and have a well-rounded view.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, but all right. So I think that to start off this discussion, we should begin with, what what hmm, sorry, my cat is currently behind my monitor, and but I would say, to start off this discussion on, sex work in America, I know you've had personal experiences with it, and can you, to the amount, to the however much you want to disclose, which does not have to be a lot at all, what has your experience been with sex work in this country, and just in general?
So I will one thing I will put out there is that there is different kinds, and there's kind of like the uh in real life, or kind of like, street corner work on the ground. That is not something I have done. Mine has been wholly online. Both variants of sex work come with their own kind of pros and cons. One is more physically dangerous, whereas the other one, uh, your bigger issue is worrying about like getting doxxed or something like that, which can also be physically dangerous. It's just from like a different source. Uh, so they kind of, there's those differences there that I like to kind of point out to people. Um, I will say that the experience itself has been interesting, and not always in a bad way, but not really in a good way either. You have to have a very you have to have a very specific kind of mindset when you enter into it. And it's it's really not for everybody. Um, I truly don't think that were I not in a as financially desperate a situation as I was when I first started, I would have had the I would have been able to enter that kind of mindset that I needed to be able to kind of, sell myself to strangers in such a way. Um, so that for me was like the motivation there was like, this is just kind of something you have to do.
Right. And I feel like, the sex work conversation has changed so much in the past 100 years.
Mm,
Because you have like the stripping industry, and you have, because you I think it's a good point that you brought up, where, you know, there's different kinds of sex work. It's not all just prostitution in the sense of standing on a street corner, but that does still exist. Um, there's a lot of different kinds of sex work. It exists, you know, differently across boundary, across social lines, and it's not all one this or one way this or one way that. But I think that the discussion around sex work has become a hard one to have, because I think a lot of people, there's a lot of reaction that people tend
Mhm.
to have about it, where it's like, either no, sex work is all bad and can never be tolerated, and you know, like, like, basically saying that, like, it's only ever um something that is like an oppressive force, which I
Mhm.
don't think is a necessarily, like, I don't think I tend to lean more in that direction, mainly because of my Marxist values and principles on how I view labor. However, I can also
Mhm.
understand that sex work and the industries surrounding it, like, are legitimate, you know, and there are legitimate
Mhm.
forms of it that are need to be respected as an art form in some ways, you know, especially, like I said, with like stripping, and with people who like dominatrixes, for example, you know, like that's one that I didn't think about till I the last conversation I had about this. But
Yeah.
I do think that there is a very distinct difference between people who I, I don't know. It's a hard conversation to have, but I do believe that there is a distinct difference between people who do it because this is what they want to do, and people who do it because this is what they have to do. You know?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm of the opinion that were we, you know, this is very, you know, mystical thinking or whatever, but were I to wave a magic wand and tomorrow, you know, the world is socialist and we're building toward communism, and you know, all people have like their basic necessities met or whatever, I do truly believe that the number of people willing to work in that kind of industry would drop drastically, but that doesn't mean that it would become zero. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So, because there are people that genuinely enjoy doing it, and then there's those of us that are more like me, where it's more out of desperation, especially in the trans community.
Right.
A lot of it is financial desperation, and um, and then like a comment about the other thing, like regarding the reaction to it, it folks seem to not everyone, but plenty of folks seem to not want to have nuance around the subject. They either want to look at it in just this way, where it's like wholly a liberating thing that is always amazing and great for everybody, or it's wholly an oppressive thing that like contributes nothing positive to society at all. And I remember one of the last times I used Reddit, it was one of the things that made me decide to not want to use it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
A couple months ago, but like some article in one of like the labor subreddits that I followed had posted. There was like an article posted, just talking about like it was something along the lines of like the you know the grotesque like day to day realities of sex work or something like that. A very like attention grabbing uh like headline or whatever, like, you know, obviously trying to, you know, tug at you and be like, oh, what, you know, what crazy stuff's going on that I need to look at or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the comments really disturbed me because it just said, somebody trying to do a 180 and overcorrect said there is nothing grotesque about sex work. And I remember I had
Mm.
to I had to respond, and I was like, as a sex worker, yes, there is.
Yeah.
because that kind of attitude about it is also not helpful. Um, you need to enter the discussion with a little bit more nuance than just being like, no, it's all evil and horrible, or oh no, it's all wonderful and perfect, because especially if you haven't actually had to do it yourself. Um,
Mm.
there's this romanticization of it in like some, especially like some other like groups on the left, I think that kind of see it as like, well, we recognize that it's labor, it's a genuine form of labor, so we must like uphold it on some sort of pedestal, which um bothers me a
No.
little bit as someone that was more uh socially coerced into it due to external factors.
Yeah, and it's also like incredibly important to recognize that sex work as an industry, I hear people say all the time, oh, it's the oldest profession. Sex work is the oldest profession. I don't think that's
No,
true.
I'm
That's
pretty
just
sure farming is, but
yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think that
or
yeah, and
hunting.
or hunting, like
Yeah.
I don't think that there's necessarily a need for sex work when you live in like a communal society, or like, you're like it's just the way that it's just such a like an odd way to look at it, because it's like, well, first of all, no, it's not. Second of all,
Right.
it arises from certain conditions. It
Yeah.
doesn't exist in a vacuum. The concept
Hmm.
of, oh, this has existed for all of time. No, it hasn't. It has not.
Right. And
Um,
I
yeah.
no, you can go ahead if you had another thing to say.
No, no, go ahead.
The only other the one of the things that because like I said, I'm kind of torn on it because I know we're tomorrow started and everyone's needs were met, I'm sure there'd still be a small amount of people that wanted to do it. Um, and I wouldn't want to tell them no, like you're not allowed to or something. Uh, if that's truly the choice you want to make, then I guess that can be your choice to make. But I do just there was an Alexandra Kollontai quote where she's, and I'm paraphrasing here. I'm not going to remember it verbatim, but she said something along the lines of, if a man can buy the favors of a woman, he can't see her as an equal or as a comrade. Um, and I think, and I can't remember when that quote is from, but I think she was possibly saying that more like that kind of thing doesn't really have a place in socialist society. If the idea is to try and get like men and women or all people to kind of be equals to one another, and I kind of agree with it. But like I said, I'm still kind of torn on it because I also don't want to wholly go and tell someone what they can and can't do. Um, though I do think a priority should be made, were that society, to start being built, is to give people that are kind of stuck in that off routes and off ramps to kind of enter into other industries, should they choose to.
Right. And I think that I did listen to Colin Tye's speech that she gave on prostitution and sex work. And I think
Hmm.
that here's the thing. If sex work is going to exist under a socialist society, it's definitely not going to exist in the way that it does currently. Um,
Right.
and I also think that when we understand like oppression and sex-based violence and all of these different things, unfortunately, overwhelmingly, there's so much violence against especially women who are sex workers, who are prostitutes.
Hmm.
Um, and while I do view sex work as like, I don't know how the future is going to play out for sex work. Should inshallah, should a socialist revolution happen.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that it has to have a radical restructuring of how we understand it, and how and there needs to be like a real meaningful push towards um seeing it more, I would say, perhaps as an art form, or as something that is less necessary for survival, and more as something that people can partake in without the necessity of like, this is how I eat. Like, this is
Yes.
how that looks, I don't know. I haven't I don't know. It's really complicated. I know
No, I
that.
I completely agree with you though. Like make it. I mean, kind of the thing you're saying is kind of like put it kind of into a similar category with other art forms, which I don't think is a completely bad idea. Just kind of seeing it as like a, something that it's, I mean, it, because it is a, speaking as it truly, as someone that's had to, spend who knows how many collective hours now, messing with lighting and microphone
Yeah.
stuff and setting up cameras and learning how to talk to specific people in specific ways that they like and all that other stuff. There is definitely a certain kind of finesse and art to it that you kind of have to hammer down. Um,
Right.
and so it's not too far off to consider it, something like that.
Yeah, and it's the problem with sex work as it exists right now is the fundamental concept of someone needing to sell themselves uh to make a living wage, you know?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um and that's where the contradiction is. We need to assess where the contradiction is, and the contradiction lies in the fact that someone has to do this, or a large portion of the population has to do this, who does sex work, in order to survive. That shouldn't
Hmm.
be how it is, because that in itself is asking for exploitation, not from the sex worker, but from the industry itself. I mean, for example, a pimp. um Pimps are capitalists, and are
Hmm.
and view the sex workers that they quote unquote own as quote unquote property.
Hmm.
Their main aim
Yep.
is to sell their property, or to rent out their property for wages, or I guess for
Hmm.
payments. um
Hmm.
and while I think that, for example, sex workers should be able to unionize, and we definitely need to do protections for sex workers in the current situation, and I would absolutely support anything along those
Hmm.
lines. That's not fixing the root problem here.
Right. No, absolutely not. And then looking at the online stuff too, depending on which platform you use, each platform always takes a cut of whatever you sell as well. I know OnlyFans takes like 20%. I can't remember what the other platforms do at the moment, but
Right.
um, they they always take a cut in a similar way that like a pimp would.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think that it's so important to recognize where the exploitation lies, and the fact that, like, yes, there are most definitely people who work in this industry because, they like it, or they want to, or whatever the case may be. Um, but the way that this industry started and continues to grow is specifically because there are people who have no other option. Like, this is their option
Yeah,
to eat, you know?
yeah. And I think
Um,
I had said it to you in a message previously, but it was a very scary thing where I had I had just recently transitioned. Um, we were struggling to keep our house due to bills piling up and repairs needing to be made in the home. Um, I was raising a child. Uh, Other partner wasn't working at the time because they were going to school. So things were getting kind of difficult, and I had already sold most things in my home that were of any like value. I had like a wonderful collection of game consoles that I had sold
right,
most of. I had an upright bass that I used to play every single day that I had to sell. Um, a lot of things that I really treasured and held very close. And it kind of clicked to me one day where I was like, well, my paychecks aren't enough. My partner can't work currently. I have to make sure my kid eats. Um, I'm, out as a woman now. What can I do? And it kind of clicked in my head of like the only thing I have left to sell is myself. And
right,
so that was kind of that was how I entered that space.
right. And like, that is like the fact that that situation even, happened, and is still happening, and is still having, the fact is that the fact that there wasn't any social safety net or protection.
Hmm.
You know, just like basic fucking welfare capitalism, you know, like
Yeah, yeah. And like shit like that, like having that lived experience is why I personally get so upset when I see or hear someone kind of romanticize it or say like there is nothing bad about it or repugnant about it. The fact that it was a decision I even had to consider, you know, is already repugnant enough. Not that sex work is some sort of disgusting thing if you want to do it, but the fact that I didn't really want to and I had to. That's the fucked up part about it,
that's
you
where the
know.
problem is the fact of
Yeah.
it, when you cross the boundary of wanting to versus having to, you know,
Yeah.
and
So
that's where the
there's
problem
yeah.
lies. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm just kind of yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's yeah. You know, it's just important to recognize this because I think that in a communist society, a socialist society, you know, like it's important to realize, okay, what is the essence of sex work? You know, what is, you know, where can we ground it in? And
Yeah.
how do we extract elements of it that are positive? And inject that into what we're currently the movement we're in the society we're building, without also taking the remnants of its oppression, you know.
Hmm.
And that's where the you know that's where we have to remain incredibly, I don't know, like that's where we have to remain incredibly diligent and understanding of the current conditions and why
Hmm.
it's so important to get perspective from people who work in the industry, and also recognize that like it is so easily exploited as it exists now,
Hmm.
um, for a lot of different reasons. You know, there is, you know, we have an incredibly reactionary government that just went and outlawed prostitution rather than outlawing the people who go or going after the people who buy a prostitute, and
Yeah.
not and punishing the person who has to do the sex work, is like a terrible idea. Um,
Yeah, it doesn't make sense and they know it doesn't. I mean it makes sense just not from, you know, the perspective of the working class. You know, they have their reasons for doing it. Um
mhm,
but it's obviously going to be contradictory to what our, you know, our reasoning, you know, since we share different class interests. Um, I do,
exactly.
I do encourage anyone listening to, while we're on this subject of like who to prosecute and all of that. I think you had mentioned that you had read it already, but anyone that hasn't should read Alexandra Kollontais' Prostitution and Ways of Fighting It, where it was very shortly after the Russian Revolution. It was in the Bolshevik Revolution in the early 1920s. She was kind of talking about how like the next steps the Soviet uh, government needed to take to kind of because prostitution was a huge issue in Tsarist Russia and even like early capitalist Russia, and then it kind of continued into um, socialist, you know, Soviet
Mm,
Union Russia
yeah.
as they worked on kind of trying to, you know, fight it. But and obviously 1920s Russia and 2020s United States are very different places, but there's still some things that hold true, which is, you know, a lot of people are forced into this kind of work due to financial desperation. Um, it may look different, but like that kind of underlying core, that kernel of that issue is still there.
Right.
Um, and she had talked about prioritizing, you know, prosecuting and going after the pimps because they kind of saw them as, you know, obviously they're exploiters. They put them in the same category as, you know, uh, capitalists, landlords, you know,
Mm,
etc. Just people that don't do work. They just own something and they put a paywall behind it to kind of extract money from someone else's labor. Um, and then while prosecuting the pimps and those that kind of run that part of the show, providing safety nets and off ramps to the mostly women, but to whoever it was that was involved in it, that was forced into it, so that they could work in a different industry and safer, more stable work elsewhere. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and like that's I think the like the thing is that um you know as we as we move into socialism, which we will and we are, um, as we as we fight for a workers' democracy, we have to reckon with the incredible reaction that has come along with our perceptions of sex work. And reading Alexander Kollontai is a great way to kind of to lift the wool over your from your eyes and really recognize you know and really recognize the actual root problems of sex work and the fact that like yeah, it's a huge problem because it it incentivizes a certain kind of exploitation that capitalism just incentivizes across the board. The problem with sex work, even more at this point, is that it is totally unregulated, and it kind of can't be under an incredibly
Yep.
reactionary government. There's no way to actually like um there's no way to really regulate it in any meaningful way currently, because it with the system built on the kind of on exploitation and the way that it is, um to regulate sex work would be to legitimize it as an actual form of work, which would mean that
Yeah.
the people who benefit from it the most, which is not the sex worker, but more often than not the pimp or the people who quote unquote own the property, it would mean holding them to a form of accountability that they don't want to be held to.
Right. No, yeah, that makes sense.
Um, and Alexandra Kollontai, incredibly accomplished woman, in the Soviet Union and so brilliant. She, I think that, her words ring so true, even today about how we should view prostitution and the fact that, it is, um, like, even though it has prostitution has as an industry and sex work as an industry has certainly grown and changed over the course of 100 years, um, it still largely exists in the same way that it did back in 1920s Russia, when they were fighting the so-called Civil War, and after that, it's um, the industry itself was there as a result of people feeling like they had no other options.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, go ahead.
And then and then to put some extra historical context into that, in the 90s when the Soviet Union fell, the rates of prostitution, even and most unfortunately and sadly, child prostitution, uh, absolutely skyrocketed,
Yeah.
because folks had lost that financial structure, that safety net that the Soviet Union, even revisionist Soviet Union under Brezhnev and later on Gorbachev, it was still far far better than what would come after. So,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah, no, and I did bring up this topic, or this point, I feel like in the past episode, but I think something important to recognize is that a lot of the victims of Epstein were actually young women who came from post-Soviet countries who had no other option. And
yeah,
the quote unquote modeling industry is actually like a pipeline into the sex work industry. Like
yeah,
the as it exists today, and honestly, we need to do more analysis on this because it's incredibly important with the Epstein case and how we understand it in context with the rest of the bourgeois class. But the fact is that he took immense advantage of the fact that post Soviet countries did not like had all of these incredible inequalities and exploited that as much as he possibly could, along with the people that he was working with.
Yeah.
And that, the modeling industry as we know it is run by people who are able to, okay, Queenie, get down. Sorry, my cat. She's so irritated
No,
at me
that's
because
okay.
it's the fact is that the model, like Jean-Luc Brunel, for example, notorious sex offender,
Yeah.
and rapist, who used his connections as like a modeling agent to take advantage of women and abuse them. And this happened for like decades, and that is a result of patriarchy, of course, and of our current social structure, but it's also reminiscent of the way that labor is viewed and the way that and of course, misogyny, uh and all of this kind of creates like a perfect storm in which prostitution is essentially like part of like the underbelly of the global market in a
Hmm.
way that is essentially undetectable. Like the ability to traffic women via the modeling, um the modeling industry and other industries adjacent to it, and just traffic
Hmm.
people in general, is a feature of the capitalist system that allows for the further exploitation of workers and of people, in a way that is so insidious.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Comrade?
I I don't have a whole lot to say other than just like that's a really good way of looking at it. Like you had previously mentioned, the fact that they won't really openly admit that it's a profession, keeps us from being able to properly regulate it. It kind of reminds me of I remember years and years ago when I was first kind of getting into leftism in general and trying to find my home, and I was still, I was just starting to like get into like reading Marx and all that other stuff, and I was a really big Bernie Sanders fan
Yeah.
and supporter for a while. I remember hearing about how he had supposedly um, been one of the people that kind of pushed for this bill to remove certain things like what was it, the Craigslist like personal meetup type section and other things like that, things that like certain platforms that sex workers had used to kind of utilize, they'd utilize them to kind of get in-person meets put together and things like that. I remember a lot of people coming out and saying like, you think that you're making, the world safer for mostly like women, but like anyone that's a part of this, but you're really just kind of shoving it into like dark web
An even deeper
and
corner of the
and
internet.
and like, yeah, you're just shoving it into like worse places that are more difficult for any kind of like regulatory authority or anything like that to find. um you're shoving it out of the public eye so that it becomes even less safe for the people that are kind of stuck there. But he and the other supporters of this bill weren't particularly interested in hearing that, and
Unsurprising.
yeah. I think it's been a while. I was either in my late teens or early 20s when that happened, and it was one of the first times I was like, huh, okay. Like I
It's like,
started
okay,
questioning,
Bernie.
I started questioning Bernie Sanders. I was like, okay, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's incredibly, um
Sorry.
like, oh no, you're good. I think that Bernie Sanders, gosh, so much to say about Bernie Sanders, but I view Bernie Sanders and that whole situation, as incredibly reactionary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody who's still on the fence about supporting Bernie Sanders, he's a Zionist. That should be your line. Um,
Yeah.
but also the fact is that social democrats and people who don't have a strong understanding of theory, and haven't educated themselves thoroughly on these matters, tend to have incredibly reactionary views that are not helpful to the actual people struggling. I
Mhm.
don't think that Bernie was necessarily trying to do something bad or try to hurt people, but I also don't think
No.
that he was trying to actively gain perspective on it and realize where this might end up having unintended blowback and consequences. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
no, go ahead,
I
yeah.
feel like I feel like he was, doing something that he thought was right without looking deeper into, or, listening to the people that are most affected by it. And it kind of it really rubs of kind of like same with like, the politicians that get super involved in like abortion stuff where it's like, well, you shouldn't be allowed to have an abortion after this certain amount of time or whatever, or like those I can't remember which state it was in where they were either pushing for a bill or a bill like had been passed into law where um stated something along the lines of how someone's gender identity and their sex is the one that they have like at like immediately after conception or whatever, which is really funny because like technically speaking that makes everyone female
Yeah.
in some weird ways. It's just what happens when you have like politicians not actually going to like the people that are in the nitty gritty of it. Politicians not talking to doctors when it comes to abortions, politicians not talking to sex workers when it comes to sex work, et cetera, just kind of making their own decisions on it.
Yeah, and just remaining ignorant because it's easier than actually having to do real work about it and like understand it from
Yeah.
a much more material and like empathetic view. Because let's be real, a lot of politicians, and especially, a lot of male politicians tend to view sex work very one-dimensionally. And I should say not just male politicians. There's probably I wouldn't put it past Nancy Pelosi to probably have this view as well. Um, you know, I'm a hater. I'm such a hater of Nancy.
Don't don't get me started on Nancy. It's okay.
Nancy. But yeah, I think that there's just there's this view of sex work as this like dirty, gross, like profession. Like that's like one side of reaction for sure, where it's like they view it as like not as like an oppressive situation or like a product like a not a production, like a product of its environment, and the fact that this is the logical conclusion to um capitalism, and and people needing uh wages to survive. They're gonna turn.
Yeah.
It's like, why do people deal drugs? There are people who deal drugs
Yeah.
because they want to deal drugs. I think that there's like a very small subsection of people who maybe that's what it is. But a large majority of people deal drugs because it is one of their only forms of actual income. And they're making more money from dealing drugs than they are willing to work at fucking Dollar General. So why would
Yeah.
they, it's a cost analysis here. Like, um am I going to make more money getting a 40-hour a week job where I make $12 an hour and I have no health care, or am I going to make more money by selling weed, or
Right.
selling, I don't know, meth, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Conrad.
I agree. Again,
Oh,
I
okay,
just
yeah.
agree with you.
Just yeah.
I have nothing to add.
Yeah, I feel so strongly about this because it's like there's only so much reaction that I can handle before I'm like, okay, are you just being malicious about this?
Oh
And
yeah, and some of them definitely are like I don't you're probably not a huge Ben Shapiro fan.
no,
Um
I love Ben Shapiro. What are you talking about? That's my
yeah,
guy.
no, I just remember seeing this clip a while ago of him and another really cool guy, Joe Rogan,
Oh
talking
yeah, I love him.
for a little bit. And, Joe Rogan was interestingly on like the right side of this discussion, or at least as much as he could have been, but they were just talking about like why do people commit crime or whatever, and Ben was trying to make it like a race thing.
Yeah.
And Joe was trying to make the argument that like there are systemic factors in place that put certain folks into certain situations, and it makes you, more or less likely to have to do certain things in order to survive. And Ben Shapiro's just kind of like, well, I don't think that they should go and pick up a gun and go and do crime. And like, it's like, yeah, man, like, yeah, sure, but like, you know, pe- people are put in certain situations. People are born into certain situations or into certain families or whatever. It's extremely unlikely that if you're born into a certain class that you're going to enter into another class or whatever. So if you're born working class, you're not going to just come into a fuck ton of money all of a sudden and not have to worry about anything ever. You know and that kind of goes back to the thing I'd mentioned before. Trans individuals, especially trans women, um, a lot of us are statistically like very very likely to have done some sort of sex work at one point, just because of how rickety and unstable getting steady work is for us. I'm fairly lucky to be in a state that's a little less overtly hostile to my existence at the moment, and to have a workplace that is, the same, like is willing to hire trans people, and all the coworkers that aren't trans are fairly well enough accepting and educated on the subject and all of that stuff. But most of my sisters and siblings out there like aren't necessarily in that position. um my problem is more just that my job doesn't pay me enough, which is another thing that you know we have to deal with. But regardless, there's all these factors going into play where it's hard for trans folk to get steady income. And so a lot of us are like, well, fucking, what else can we do? And so sex work comes into play.
Yeah, and especially I think that this issue like disproportionately affects women and trans women and just people who in general are not men.
Yeah.
And it's not that men don't do sex work or cannot be involved in sex work. That's not, obviously we know that's not true. There are definitely men who are forced into sex work, but overwhelmingly this affects women um, because of the way women are viewed in society as forms of property and as something to behold and something to to own. And I think that especially for trans women, there is a huge market out there, unfortunately, especially by conservative straight men
Hmm.
um, who fetishize trans women because they view them as like this exotic, like like I don't know. It's a very strange and again, like there's nothing wrong with being attracted to just a person in general. Like no, that's not the problem. The problem is that um they use these spaces where trans women are specifically like being exploited to obviously take advantage of them and also in some cases do violence against them.
Hmm.
um it's a very fucked up way of viewing trans people. But there's a lot of people who they have these very contradictory views because they themselves have not done a lot of internal work on how they view gender and sex.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to point out, and I can't remember who it was that initially said it. It was probably just like a post I saw on like Facebook or some shit like a year or two ago. But I just remember somebody saying like we as a porn genre, we are like way too popular. I know some of you motherfuckers out there are lying about how you truly feel about us because we are way too popular
Right.
as a porn genre.
No, and it's true. It's really true. It's the fact is that it's a huge market because there's a lot of incredibly closeted people in the world who have not really dealt with their own, like Lindsey Graham is like a perfect example of this. Like, you know, someone of incredible reaction who is like a garbage human being, frankly, but who is so like just such a contradictory person to begin with, just so like such a weird person, but also someone who has clearly not actually done any internal work on their own identity and how they view these things, because they are so incredibly reactionary, but they still most certainly partake in their own desires. They just view it in a way that is so, it's just this is what happens when motherfuckers can't just be openly queer. You know, like this is what happens, is you have some people who end up being victims of this system and others who perpetrate it.
Yeah. It's like just say you like dick. It's fine.
Thank you. Just say you like pee-pee.
It's fine. I do.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's
It's not
fine.
a bad thing to, it's whatever you're into, that's fine. Like, we're not going to yell at you for that. That's not why I dislike you, Lindsey Graham. There's plenty of other things to dislike you for.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, I'm not gonna get hung up on that one, you know, like it's
Right, yeah.
it's just like it's such a complex situation and issue. But to close out the conversation here, one thing that I want to you know, point out is that you know, under a socialist society, sex work um cannot exist in the way that it does right now. And there needs to be
Absolutely.
like truly there needs to be a transformative discussion and movement, frankly, around how sex work needs to change in order to exist in a different way, you know, in a different mode of production, with different fundamental values and how we view it, because it cannot exist in the way that it does now. The incredible reaction that exists right now due to you know, problems like misogyny and transphobia and you know, just capitalism at large.
Mhm.
You know, there needs to be a real reckoning on how we conceptualize sex work, and how and what parts of it we can bring over to this new mode of production versus what we need to leave behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also add in there there's those, the, like mentioned before, the right wing, you know, reactions, but also the more kind of like attempts at being progressive, knee jerk, like romanticization reactions of it as well, will also need to be combated.
Absolutely. There's so many angles in which we need to combat this problem. And that it's not all one thing or another, and there's a lot of different perspectives on it. And the only way that we can truly find a solution is by keeping an open mind and recognizing and having specifically a scientific view of the situation, and what are the variables, and how do we you know, like how can we truly understand it as like an industry, and in the larger context of the market and capital, and you know, what draws someone to doing it, you know, whether it's in a consensual way or coercion, and how do you delineate that. You know, there's an actual really earnest discussion that needs to be had on this, that we can only do with the understanding that it cannot exist in the way that it does as we transition to socialism.
Yeah. No, yeah,
um,
absolutely.
but yeah, Josephine, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and doing this with me. I so appreciate your perspective. And is there anything
Of
else you wanted to add?
course. Yes. I have a closing quote that
Oh,
I can say for everybody.
heck yeah.
And this is, if I get any words wrong, please forgive me. But
Look away, everyone. Look away. If
to quote the great Enver Hoxha, the entire party and country should hurl into the fire and break the neck of anyone who dare trample underfoot our sacred edict of the party on the defense of women's rights.
Period. Mic drop. No, nothing else needs to be said on that. Thank
and
you,
I'll
Edgar.
leave it at that.
Yet another Ember banger. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and